Hi folks, you're with Tacitus today. Your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this audio radio live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about the growth of the activist NGO and also the growth of taxpayer funding for these NGOs. Now, you can argue that the NGOs are simply there to do the dirty work of the deep state, facilitating mass migration, for example. How do you think these penniless peasants travel thousands of miles across continents and arrive looking very well fed in brand new clothes, brand new trainers, mobile phones, brand new luggage bags? How do they do this when they're penniless, illiterate peasants living hand to mouth in some dirt poor rural village? The cost of moving, and they'd be all skin and bones and dressed in rags if they were doing it under their own steam. So clearly there's a massive infrastructure there. Who pays for all this? And this is, I guess, the essence of what this essay is going to be about. Now, about 25 years ago, maybe a little bit longer, but around 25 years ago, I was helping for free. They were a charity, and they were helping homeless people on the street, particularly people with drug problems primarily, and I was helping them out with just organising some of their finances. Now, at this stage, people who worked in these charities that received very little government assistance, or most of them did, people who worked in these charities were very poorly paid. They're people who really couldn't get jobs anywhere else. And the charities, because they were paying such low money, had to accept pretty much any talent they could get, no matter how minimal it was. So when they had to do something serious, they had to rely on the charity of citizens such as myself to come along and help them on certain things. Now, I noticed that their government donations were somewhere less than 10%. So let's say somewhere between 5 and 10%, the government gave them money. They registered charity, so they didn't have to pay tax. And there are different rules with filing income statements, this sort of thing. But they relied on donations. Donations were tax deductible, or above a certain amount, I think, were tax deductible. So they sort of were the services they could deliver were restricted based on the limited government help they got and the amount of donations they received. And there weren't that many NGOs, or what they were called charities at the time, but later on the NGO's name became popular. Now, there were some very activist type NGO charities, such as Greenpeace, for example. They were quite activists in a number of areas, and their boilerplate, if you will, their methodology of activism is something that's continued on as a general blueprint for climate change activism and all sorts of other forms of activism, pro mass migration activism, etc. And so what's changed between then 25 odd years ago and today? Well, I was looking at an income statement a few days ago from a charity that's very prominent in moving migrants into the southern United States and breaking the law themselves and encouraging others to break the law. Yet it seems they're able to do this with not only utter impunity, but they can even get masses of taxpayer money to go and do it, which seems astonishing. But this is a supposed charity. I mean, it's a registered charity. It's a very politically activist, deep state controlled NGO, and they're about 85% of their income, a little bit more actually, but closer to 90% of their income is actually US taxpayers funding them directly. So the US government at various levels is funding them, is just handing them taxpayer money to go and get illiterate third world peasants to enter the United States illegally. And just saying it, you go, what? I mean, that can't be so, but it's quite brazen. And these people are being given documents you've got a court date to hear your asylum claim, but it's 1,000 years from now, so don't worry about it. But it's got the name of the US officials on the form, the US officials who have processed this paperwork for these illegals. I hope all those people are when sanity returns to the US and the Western world generally, I hope all these people are vigorously prosecuted, because they're brazenly helping people, these illiterate peasant aliens, helping them, aiding and abetting them, facilitating, multiple breakings of the law, and again, they're being very handsomely paid, these NGOs, by the taxpayer. Who's signing off on these payments of the NGOs? And if you look at the amount of money, the amount of NGOs involved, which are many hundreds, and the amount of money that's been given is many tens of millions. I mean, some of these have been given over $100 million of taxpayer money. So now on top of that, they're also given, if you like, goods and services in kind. For example, these illegal aliens are coming in. They've got massive NGO assistance to move around. These people say, well, Jose has travelled 3,000 miles on foot. That just proves that he's a refugee, just wanting a better life, and he's oppressed. Now, Jose arrives looking very plump and cheerful. If he's walked 3,000 miles, then he'd be a pretty slim dude. I mean, he'd be skin and bone, but he's looking pretty plump. He's got brand new clothes on. He's got brand new trainers. He's looking quite prosperous in the overall scheme of things, and he's supposed to have engaged in a 3,000-mile journey while being a penniless peasant. Where did he find food? How was he getting water to drink, clean water? How was he able to? Now there's a harrowing thing of they're going through these jungles that are full of alligators and poisonous snakes and fucking lions and tigers, and so they're braving the weather and the elements and the dangers, and they're climbing across 1,000-foot drop gorges, and they're doing it on one finger across a rope that's almost frayed and breaking. That just shows how desperate these folks are. Yeah, sure it is. So they're arriving looking very untroubled, looking very well fed and very well looked after. And again, I look at some of the trainers that I wouldn't pay. I can't afford that. Well, I can afford them, but I wouldn't pay those sort of money for a pair of trainers that the designer label type trainers. But anyway, these people are arriving en masse, and that's very expensive to move that many people around those sort of distances. Then another group of NGOs take over and bring them through the border and into the United States or into Europe or into Italy or wherever it is, and these people are again the services in kind come in. So the local state government then provides all sorts of other support and facilities that to go on. Then the local government, like a local county or the local city government, then provides all free halls and rooms and things for accommodation, and that's another level of handouts that go on there. And then another NGO is subcontracted, if you like, to then move these people around internally so that they get plane rides or coaches to take them all over the United States. That's another layer of NGOs. So once you sort of look at this, that the NGOs of 25 years ago actually got by on donations. That was there. They'd get some government money. There was some of the religious groups that they run like hostel boarding houses for homeless people. They got a bit more government money, but that again was often in kind. They'd be given a building to say, well, you can put these homeless people there, and the building would be owned by the government. The government would then, if you like, give it for free to this organisation. So that was viewed as goods in kind. So those sort of things did go on, but you had to directly deliver it to your own citizens who were in need. It wasn't for other people. But that's all changed. So the entire NGO or charity system and charity sort of community has been churned into a massive NGO activist type class of organisations that are now primarily government funded. So when I saw that thing of 80% plus of revenues come directly from government grants, that's before you include services and goods in kind. That's direct government grants. And you can get, say, companies like, I don't know, well, not Walmart directly, but for example, a Walmart type organisation is then given a tax credit in the back room by the government, who's then able to give, and then they then give 10,000 pairs of trainers to the NGO that they then get. So there are all these other things are going on as well, which add up to serious money, by the way. So you have multiple layers of these NGOs that are relying primarily on government grants. Now, when you look at the growth of mass migration, and you plot it on a chart or a graphical representation, you plot it on a chart, and then you look at the amount of money being handed to NGOs by governments. So this is taxpayer money without your knowledge or consent. That as the voting citizen, you don't get any say in this. You don't even know about it. So if you look at the growth in mass migration, and then look at the government grants and handouts, taxpayer funded money going to the NGOs, and it lines almost perfectly. The two lines follow each other almost perfectly. So you can see that there was the intention, in downtown globalist planning central, said, okay, how are we going to do this mass migration thing? Okay, well, we can't be seen to be involved too directly in it. Otherwise, we're going to scare the horses or upset the persuadable public, as they say in America here. So what we have to do is we've got to do it in the dirty back room, so to speak. So we're going to pay the NGOs to do it, and they can do it for us. So we go, well, it's them, it's not us. And then if there are any legal problems, we've got a stacked court that can say, well, there's nothing we can do. And then we as the politicians, well, we can't do anything. Look at the courts, the law won't let us. And the whole thing's a piece of outrageous theatre. But the plan was always, how are we going to move these surplus black and brown illiterate peasant populations to the West? Let's use the NGO sector and let's pay these guys to do it. That's why, the CEO of an NGO would be paid the average wage 25, 30 years ago. Today, the CEO of an NGO could be paid millions, but it's all corrupt, dirty money, because they're facilitating this dirty business of illegal mass migration, and that the taxpayer dollars of the Western, primarily white citizens, is being used to do this. You've been fantastic today, your Pushback channel, and thank you for listening.